The following was recorded not with the intention of tearing Season 6 to shreds, but to educate people on why it was such a disappointment. Events occur in real time. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Season 6 of 24. So in the 11 weeks leading up to the events of Season 6, a series of suicide bombings have occurred coast to coast around the United States. And a man by the name of Abu Fayyad agrees to give the US government the location of the terrorist supposedly responsible for these attacks, Hamri al-Assad. However, he'll only do it in exchange for Jack Bauer. Hence the season's tagline, "For America to survive, Jack Bauer must die." And all of this heavily involves Wayne Palmer, who is now the current US president, in making every critical decision in response to these attacks. So everybody who's watched 24 knows that Season 6 is the season that pretty much broke the camel's back and hurt the show's reputation. Is it terrible? No. Is it any good? No, not really. So let's get into it. So first of all, I do appreciate the scale of the season. You know, these terrorist attacks are happening all over the United States for once, because let's be honest, the idea of Los Angeles being the sole target for any threats whatsoever was starting to get a little bit ridiculous by this point. 20 months after his illegal capture by Cheng Ji at the end of Season 5, Jack Bauer isn't quite the same man he was before, due to the amount of torture he endured. Chloe has to learn to work alongside her ex-husband Morris, who's actually one of my favorite characters on the show due to his quirky charm. Bill Buchanan is still the current director of CTU and is now married to National Security Advisor Karen Haynes, who was introduced in Season 5, and their working relationship is put to the test in this season. Milo Pressman, a technological contractor who was introduced in Season 1, makes a return this season. He's left to be temporarily in charge of CTU when Bill Buchanan is involved in the negotiations for Jack Bauer's release. And we even get to see him out on the field for a bit. There's a couple of new characters introduced as well. For example, Sandra Palmer, played by Regina King, who is the sister of David and Wayne Palmer, as well as the legal counselor for the Islamic American Alliance. And she becomes furious when the FBI begins to meddle with her work. Vice President Noah Daniels considers resorting to more extreme measures in order to deal with the terrorist attacks, putting him at odds with Wayne Palmer. Tom Lennox, being the chief of staff, clashes with Karen Haynes over the ethics of civil liberties for American Muslims. Nadia Yassir is also an acting director at CTU when Buchanan isn't around. However, her ethnicity makes her a possible suspect when the CTU is investigating a potential mole. Abu Fayyad, the man willing to assist CTU with the location of Assad, demands Jack Bauer in exchange due to a personal grudge he holds against him for something he did years ago. The only other noteworthy thing I can bring up without going into spoiler territory is the finale, mainly due to how the climax played out and for at least trying to make up for an otherwise lackluster season. Now unfortunately, none of the positive aspects of Season 6 was strong enough to save it from disaster, and there are several reasons for this. Firstly, the numerous recycled plot points from yet another Islamic terrorist plot. No matter what they do to tweak things or change things up, for the most part it's pretty much the same stuff we've seen before. You have another conspiracy to overthrow the White House by means of the 25th Amendment, moles within the CTU, kidnappings, you name it, this season probably has it. And it offers very little that can be considered remotely new or innovative in the process. Another thing is the poor utilization of some characters, whether they are killed off unceremoniously, or they act out of character for shock value, or they have storylines that sound good on paper but again are just poorly executed. I mean, a prime example of this is the whole President Wayne Palmer thing. The idea isn't so bad. I mean, honestly, David would be proud of him and all that, but he's just not a very good president. He's very incompetent, and he just goes completely off the rails around the second half of the season. Another major issue, and quite frankly, this is everyone's biggest problem with season 6. Mine's not so much. I'd say it's my second biggest issue, and it's the whole Jack Bauer family plotline. This could have worked in the season's favor, but it just ended up being a train wreck of its own, because a couple of Jack Bauer's family members are only being introduced into the show now, and the whole direction they decide to go with it felt forced and kinda soap opera-ish. I get that in some ways 24 was always meant to be this action-packed political soap opera in its own special way, but with this season they were really pushing it with all the soap opera elements. So much so that James Cromwell, who plays a pivotal character in this storyline, did not enjoy his time on the show and described his character as bizarre. And fun fact, his role was originally intended for Kiefer Sutherland's real-life father, Donald Sutherland. And finally, my biggest issue with season 6 is the fact that the writers tried so hard to outdo themselves after taking the show to new heights with season 5 that it's almost as if they forgot what makes the show compelling in the first place. Because with this season, the show kind of devolved into self-parody. You know, it's just so bloated with too many ideas, too many storylines, and too many character arcs spread across 24 episodes. So much so that some ideas aren't fully realized. The most noteworthy example being a tortured Jack Bauer. You know, they don't really do anything with that. Even the Islamophobic undertones from seasons 2 and 4 are now extremely heavy-handed and too on the nose here, to the point where people are literally accusing each other of being racists. And it also felt like they were trying to replicate the shock value for the major character deaths in season 5 here, and it kind of backfired most of the time. If the writers had just ditched the Islamic terrorist plotline and focused more on Jack Bauer's capture by Cheng Ji at the end of season 5, this season could have been something amazing. You know, the season could start out with negotiations between the US government and China over the release of Jack Bauer, and as a result, tensions could escalate between the two of them, possibly leading to a third world war of sorts. And that could be the final season. You know, it could have been one of the greatest final seasons in TV history. But that wasn't the case. I guess sometimes we aren't meant to have nice things. But surprisingly enough, even the cast and crew have gone on record expressing their disappointment with season 6. And with season 7, they really tried to remedy that in order to redeem the show. I'm not sure if the writer's strike had anything to do with this, because season 6 was probably in production a year before the strike took place, but I guess it was just a case of the writers, again, trying to outdo themselves, especially since they had written themselves into a bunch of creative corners after season 5. So yeah, it was a disappointing season overall, but at least the writers tried to make up for it with the later seasons, rather than just copping out by pulling the plug on the show after this season. So yeah, those are my thoughts on season 6 of 24. Next time, we're gonna be taking a break from my 24 retrospective so that I can review season 3 of The Mandalorian. So look forward to that very soon. And yeah, thank you all for watching, guys. Please be sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe. Ring the bell, take care, and I'll see you soon.